This is the Gauntlet Podcast. My name is Jason.
And my name is Anna.
Anna, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be back.
So, listeners, that's Anna Kreider, game designer and artist and blogger extraordinaire, and she is here to talk about an upcoming Kickstarter campaign that she is launching with Andrew Medeiros for their game, The Watch. Or is it The Watch or The Watch RPG? What is the official title?
Well, I mean, it's just The Watch. The thing is, the hashtag Join the Watch was already taken, so that's why we added RPG.
Got it. All right. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was like a Google, like a search thing or whatever, you know, like putting RPG in it, if that helped. I'm sure it does, but,
yeah.
Well, so The Watch. I got a chance to play with you and Drew, actually, at Dreamation, and even in that early stage, I loved it. I thought the game was so freaking cool, and I'm very excited about this Kickstarter. I know a lot of people are really, really excited about this. So before we dive into the Kickstarter stuff, though, maybe just give our listeners, give us an overview of what The Watch is. What is it about?
Okay. Well, I mean, the sort of elevator pitch I usually give is The Watch is a low fantasy PBTA game about women and femmes and non-binary femmes who are fighting to retake their homeland from the Shadow. And the Shadow is this darkly sorcerous threat that has the power to possess men and use them for its own violent ends. So, you know, prior to the start of the game, there's already so much that's been lost to the Shadow. You've lost land, loved ones, traditions. But, you know, the people that remain have come together and formed a new fighting force from those able to resist the Shadow. And that's what they call the Watch.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so maybe just sort of like mechanically speaking, like, you know, what are kind of the basics of the game? I know it's powered by the Apocalypse. And so maybe sort of like just what's the setup mechanically speaking, gameplay wise, and maybe how does it like differentiate itself from other PBTA games?
Mm-hmm. So something that'll be familiar for people who play a lot of PBTA games is we do borrow from Night Witches in that there is like a 2-phase play structure. Instead of having, you know, day scenes and night scenes, though, there's mission scenes that have their own moves and resolution. And then there's kind of when you get back from being in the field and you kind of have to deal with the fallout of everything that happened. Where we kind of differentiate ourselves is the systems that we added in to track kind of the toll that fighting this terrible war takes on you over time. So we have Jaded, that's like a modified version of Corruption from Urban Shadows, which, you know, given that my co-designer is Drew Medeiros, that's not too surprising.
Right, yeah. Makes sense, right?
But there's also Weariness, which kind of measures your short-term, like, ability to cope with stuff. And when you max out on Weariness, you actually kind of blow up at the people around you. The potential is to really do damage to your important relationships that you'll have to put time and effort into rebuilding. And along with that, we've also added in a currency called Camaraderie. And Camaraderie is kind of, it's not necessarily a measure of how close you are to someone, because over the course of the war, I mean, of course, you're going to become closer to the other player characters as you're all fighting this terrible war together. It's more a measure of how in sync you are with someone, and sometimes someone does something that's really hurtful or damaging, and you have to kind of put work into rebuilding that relationship. So camaraderie makes it possible for other people to help you. And it's also just a measure of like your power to affect other people as well.
Awesome. You know, that you mentioned Night Witches, and that's super interesting because I remember when I was doing the playtest, I remember having a lot of the same feelings when I was playing The Watch as when I played Night Witches, and I've run a fair amount of Night Witches. And not just because the principal characters are women, and not even just because of like the sort of like day-night cycle, or for you guys, it's like the mission downtime cycle, but it really felt like a game of like emotional peaks and valleys. Does that make sense? You know, like it felt like, you know, okay, we're in this, we're doing this really hard, you know, this really hard, like fighting and very like grueling sort of mission stuff, against this backdrop of this very, very bleak backdrop, not very, pretty bleak backdrop, against this bleak backdrop. But then, you know, we go back to base and we're forging bonds with one another. We are, you know, we're sort of like releasing steam, you know, we are, the camaraderie, like all that stuff, like that all comes through really well, like that sort of high and low of like emotionally speaking. And I have to assume that was a design goal.
Totally. Yeah. one of my favorite things is, yeah, I mean, you have this terrible campaign, and, I mean, part of the starting situation is everyone kind of comes from terrible circumstances that have led them to being part of the watch. But then you also get things like, I mean, one of the things that was great about that playtest that you did at Dreamation last year, which was actually like the first time that we had that game publicly tested, was...
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. Awesome.
When your character and William's character decided that you were married, and you had some super touching scenes together. Like,
yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
It was really great seeing how, like, we went out in the field on this mission, and it was really hard and stressful, and we saw some not great things and had to make some not great decisions. And then, you know, when we came back, I mean, your characters kind of found refuge in each other's arms, and it was very, like, beautiful and touching. So yeah, definitely one of our goals for the game was to, you know, be able to showcase moments of beauty and touching personal relationships, but also kind of the horror of war against, you know, an overwhelming opponent who wants you to stop existing.
Yeah, I remember those scenes very vividly, actually, even though it was over a year ago. And as I recall, we had a scene where I'm pretty sure I was carrying William's character like piggyback, like running through the camp, right?
Yeah.
You know, it was just like this really great, like sort of moment of levity. It was really pretty good. One of the things that I thought was super interesting about the game when we played, and I'm not sure how it's changed since then, but I know you spent some time like talking a little bit about sort of the tribe and the culture of the tribe that these women came from, right? Is that still a part of the game? Like those, like whatever it was, like half dozen or so different groups?
Yeah, definitely. Although we've shifted more to talking about in terms of languages of the clans, just because tribe has some unfortunate baggage that comes with it.
It may have been clans. I'm probably misspeaking. It's been over a year, but yeah.
Yeah, no worries. I don't expect you to like perfectly remember a game that you played in alpha playtest a year ago.
Right.
But yeah, that's definitely very much a focus as well. Like part of the initial first session, character creation is there's actually a bunch of questions that you answer as a group about kind of the relationships between the clans that you come from. So there's 10 clans and they each have, you know, kind of a general aspect to them. Like you have the mystics, or you have the nomads, or you have, you know, the farmers, stuff like that. But then you actually kind of create a situation where, you know, these clans came together and formed the Watch because none of them had enough people left to really be able to resist effectively on their own. But like all those old clan divisions are still there, even though officially they've said, okay, well, no more clans. But it's still a very political thing where, you know, you get people saying things like, oh, well, that's just like a Dothis, you know, like, so
right. Yeah.
It's still like a political thing that's definitely there.
I really enjoyed that part of it. Listeners will have to just bear with my individual stories about my playtest, but I really enjoyed that part of it because it was interesting to see like how the different, you know, PCs responded to the way the other PCs behaved and like kind of how they saw everything through their clans' sort of like lens, but they still have to remember like why they're all there in the first place together, you know? So for example, my character, you know, I had a lot of fun, like really just thinking about the backstory of my clan, right? I had a lot of a lot of fun with that. And so my character was like very optimistic, like very, very positive, very optimistic, almost like jarringly so in the face of like how like bleak these circumstances were, you know? And as we got playing and we began like kind of discovering things about each other, you know, it kind of came out that was a cultural trait in my clan. Like you face like intense adversity with extreme optimism. Like you don't let them see you frown. You don't let them see you be upset. And in fact, it's like shameful to respond to adversity with anything other than like unbridled optimism. It was just a really neat aspect of the game. I hope it's one of the things that I hope people realize about the game. Like there's so many interesting layers and dynamics going on within this sort of like frame that the game presents, right? Which is pretty awesome. Thank
you. One of the things that I enjoy about having that dynamic of the clans, I mean, you're ostensibly all one group, but then you have these divisions between you, is it ends up being a reflection on how in any kind of resistance movement, there's always going to be tribal divisions, and it's easy to get lost in that tribalism and sort of negative politics and lose sight of what it is that you've actually come together to achieve in the first place.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, for sure. Well, awesome. So I guess like we've maybe kind of touched on it. I don't know, but I always like to ask people this question: like, what is your favorite thing about the game, Anna? And like, why do you think people are going to love the watch?
So honestly, my favorite thing about the watch is that it is explicitly about women and non-binary and gender variant people, but telling the sort of story that they never get featured in, you know? It's the sort of like low fantasy, military, grand epic that's usually populated mostly by dudes.
Right, yeah.
And those are the stories that, especially when I was a lot younger, like growing up, I was really hungry for. But I never saw them. And so when I started making my own games and doing my own creative work, I find it immensely satisfying to create games about women who fight. And this is kind of like the ultimate manifestation of that, I guess.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, my favorite thing about it is just you're telling stories about women and non-binary people in ways that they don't get featured, but people still, like, no matter what their personal identity is, like, they still can engage with it and get really excited about it. Like, I ran a ton of sessions at Gen Con, and I didn't have a single woman in any of my games. Mm-hmm. And, like, everybody that I ran it for was super excited to play it.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. I mean, I think I said this last time it was either you or Drew, last time one of you guys were on the show. I guess it's been over a year ago now. And I think I made that point, and because I remember feeling that same way. I was like, gosh, this is a story we don't often get, you know, like this is a story that you just don't get either in fiction or even in gaming. And it felt awesome. It felt really, really cool. Well, I guess, like, let's just move to the Kickstarter then.
Sure.
So as of the day of this recording, it launches in a little over 2 weeks, I guess, Valentine's Day, right? Mm-hmm. The game's launching very, very soon, in any case. And first things first, like, is it done? Like, are you guys, like, pretty close to being wrapped up with development?
Oh, development has been done for a couple months now.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
Drew and I kind of had a division of labor in which I'm responsible for writing the book, and I was like, okay, I'm going to need 3 months to write it, so we're sticking a fork in the design at the end of September. So we had our final design meeting, and we're not making any rules changes. And I actually finished the book and have handed it off to my editor, so, like, it's still... It was a first draft, and I'm waiting for my first round edits, so it's still, like, in process, but, like... Mm-hmm. The text of the book and all of the rules are done. So this isn't going to be one of those things where, okay, the Kickstarter's done, now we have to, like, figure out how these rules work, right? Yeah.
Awesome. We'll do our best not to call out other in development Kickstarters. Okay, so when people pledge on the Kickstarter, are they going to get access to, like, any quick start rules or playtest materials or anything like that?
Yeah, we're going to clean up our current playtest document, which is pretty extensive. It has a lot of MC support material along with the playbooks and everything, and make that available to backers as soon as they back. So we also have a community on Google+. If anyone trying to run the game has questions, we can answer them there. So yeah, definitely when people back the game, they'll get a version that they can run, assuming you're familiar with running Powered by the Apocalypse
PBTA games. Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, it's like a 30-page document, so it doesn't cover everything. Maybe if you're not a veteran to PBTA, but definitely if you have that experience, you'd be able to pick this up and run it, no problem.
Awesome. That sounds good. Well, cool. Well, so what about pledge levels on the Kickstarter? Are you guys going to be able to do, like, hardcover, for example, or what sorts of things are going to be available? Do you know that yet? Is it too early?
We definitely have different levels planned. Hardcover isn't something that we'll be offering initially, but hopefully we'll attract enough interest to make that possible.
Okay, awesome.
We also have some extended content planned as a stretch goal that I'm pretty happy about. I definitely hope we get to put that in there. Yeah, we have some cool plans.
Any ideas about stretch goals or stretch goal contributors?
Yes.
Okay. It sounds like something you can't share yet. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah. We're sitting on that for now.
No, that's fine. That's fine. No problem. That's part of the fun of the Kickstarter, right? Is revealing all those things. So cool. Well, I'm super excited about the Kickstarter. I'm going to be there on day one backing. And just to be really precise for listeners, it's February 14th, right? Is when it launches?
February 14th, yes.
Awesome. Cool. So listeners, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, it's almost here, and pay attention to the G Plus community for us listeners, because we will be posting about it when it goes live as well. Awesome. Is there anything else you want to say about the game before we move to the next segment?
No, I think we did a pretty good job of covering everything.
All right. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and go to the next segment then. This episode of the Gauntlet Podcast is being sponsored by our friends at Nocturnal Media. So right now, listeners, Nocturnal is in the middle of a Kickstarter campaign for a game called Cold Shadows. Cold Shadows is a tabletop role-playing game built on the rule set Blood and Honor by John Wick, as well as World of Dew by Werner Wonderworks. Cold Shadows is a narrative tabletop role-playing game where the rules are focused on telling a dynamic, personal, and compelling story. The game is set in a taut world of espionage, betrayal, and drama, inspired by the great spy stories of authors such as Jean Le Carré and Robert Ludlum. Cold Shadows is written to evoke the feeling of the Cold War era of spies, both in modern and a historical context. The game can easily be used to tell espionage stories in any 20th and 21st century time frame. I've taken a look at the Kickstarter. It looks great. I've backed it. I'm pretty excited where this game is going, because I can't think of too many 20th century Jean Le Carré style spy games that have a narrative focus. So this is pretty cool. If that sounds interesting to you, go take a look at that Kickstarter. We will have a link in the notes. And thanks again to Nocturnal for supporting us. Hey, it's Giving Me Life. I'll start. So I'm getting ready to go to Dreamation, and I'm really excited about Dreamation. This is going to be the first double exposure con that I've gone to where I have managed to wrangle a pretty large number of Gauntlet people who are going to be there as well. So I'm very, very excited about that. We got a whole posse going to Dreamation. And so I'm really super pumped about that. I'm really excited because Kate Bullock, I don't know if you know this, Anna, but Kate Bullock joined our show, as a regular co-host, and she has promised to drag me to all the things at Dreamation. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun at Dreamation. I'm just, I'm excited about the games that I'm going to try to get into, or that I'm already into. And just kind of meeting a lot of people that I see online in real life. So yeah, it's going to be super cool. That's what's giving me life.
Awesome. Kate is fantastic.
She's so great. Yeah. It's so funny. I'll tell this story. We met at Metatopia, and it was like this, you very rarely run into people with whom you have instant chemistry. It was just this instant chemistry. And it's we just knew oh man, I totally get the way you think about games. I get the way you think about games. Let's just, and then it just kind of went from there. So, yeah, pretty awesome. Anna, what's giving you life right now?
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to Dreamation, but...
Oh, you're going. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to be there, and I'm running a watch.
Oh, cool. Sweet. As I heard that Drew wasn't going, so I wasn't sure. That's good. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually bringing the friend who kind of helped us a lot in, the really early stages with figuring out our MC principles and moves and whatnot.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
They're going to co-run the long con with me, so...
Sweet.
But I'm going to be that parent right now and talk about my kid for a few minutes. Sure,
yeah.
So I have a daughter, she's 4, and something that is giving me life right now is she just started swimming lessons, and you will never as an adult be as happy about anything as a 4-year-old. When they're really happy about something, most adults are not capable of feeling that intensity and just one emotion about anything. So she loves her swimming lessons so much. It is absolutely absurd. So I get to sit and watch her and just glow with excitement. And
nice.
It's fantastic because, I think as adults, we kind of get bogged down with just getting through, getting by,
yeah,
moving forward. And it's easy to kind of sink into that rut of forgetting, what's good. And so it's nice having that reminder of like, no, there's cool things.
Yeah, that's cool. So. That's great. Awesome. Well, Anna, this has been super fun. Thanks so much for coming on the show and talking about the watch.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun, and it's always gratifying to talk with someone who's enthusiastic about something I'm doing.
Yeah, no. So I guess where can we find you, like, on social media?
Well, like I said, we do have a community on Google Plus for the watch. It's a public community, so you can join there, and Drew and I moderate that community. I am on Google Plus. I tend to be a little insular there, so if you follow me and I don't follow you back, it's nothing personal.
Right. I know how that goes. Like, I always feel so like, is this person, do they hate me now because I haven't responded or, but they're only so much, you have so much bandwidth, No, the watch community sounds awesome. I joined it, and as soon as the Kickstarter happens, I intend to try to get some of those games to the table, and so I may be chiming in there as well myself. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome. And yeah, I'm also on Twitter. I'm not very good about remembering to use Twitter consistently, but I'm there. And I am on Facebook, but I do not use Facebook for games, so that's just another disclaimer. If you try and friend me there, I won't friend you back.
Awesome. All right, well, so listeners, that was our show. If you'd like to get in touch with us, the best place to go is to our website, gauntlet-rpg.com. We also have a G Plus community. Just search for The Gauntlet. We have a Twitter at GauntletRPG. And if you like what you hear and you'd like to support us on Patreon, we always love that. It's patreon.com/gauntlet. Anna, thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
And listeners, thanks for listening. Take care.
Honestly, I think we've covered everything.
I think we covered it pretty well. Yeah.
No.
I would be excited about it if I heard this. So, if I hadn't already known about it. Cool. All right. Well, then just give me a
Sorry, let me deal with my cat.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah.
Ruby, what are you doing? Okay. Yeah. Maybe don't meow while I'm trying to get an interview. She just wanted some attention, but then she settled down just out of arm's reach. Because cats.
That sounds like a classic cat move, doesn't it?
Oh, such a classic cat move. My husband had to learn how to play computer games with her, across both his arms.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's okay. We could. It's kind of fun. People kind of, I don't know. For some reason, people always get excited about hearing cats and stuff in the background. So
okay.
It should be okay.